Jets, what is going on, Jet fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Jets Ward. I am your host, Ryan Ward, and I am so excited to be here with you guys. I got something special for you guys today. But first, if you have been here before, thank you so much for joining me. I always love having you guys come back and hitting it off in the Jets Ward. If you are new here, whether you are a Jets fan or not, welcome. You are always welcome here. No matter, even if you're a football fan or not a football fan, you are always welcome in the Jets Ward just to hang out and chat. But guys, I always love doing these mock draft season, and I always enjoy doing first round mock drafts to get in the ideas of the GMs, where they're going to go. We're starting to see the landscape starting to come down, who's going to be picked where, what teams are interested in. But I can't do this alone. And today, like I said, I got a treat for you guys. He is one of the best YouTubers on YouTube, best Jets and NFL content creators. He has his own channel called Jets Chaos, and he is on Jets Talk 24 or Jets Talk with Ryan, Matt, Green Bean, and all of those great guys over there. And he also does a show, Reality Check, with Matt O'Leary. He is the one, the only Jeremy. Welcome.
It's good to be here. I feel like I got to do what you did. Jets, 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 Jets.
Oh, I love it. It's so, just being a Jets fan is always so much fun. Like the conversations we have with our group, we're such a wonderful fan base, and it's just an honor having you, man. It's so good. Like I was telling you earlier, I was nervous reaching out, but you are one of the best, and I'm so glad that I can get you on my show.
Oh, shucks. I'm humbled now. No.
You do a great job, honestly. You give the Jets fans reality checks when we need them, and I appreciate that.
I appreciate that feedback, and yeah, man, that's the whole point of doing it. Like when people say that, that's the best. You know, it's like just being able to connect to people, and if they're really looking forward to the show and being entertained by us, that's like extremely flattering, and it's an honor, you know, to be that guy.
I'm so excited. And I need to bring my A game because you are somebody who's been to the Senior Bowl. You keep up with the draft, the rookies coming out. So I need to be on my A game when we get into this draft and know what I'm talking about. So got one of the best today, guys. We are going to be using one of my favorite mock draft simulators, Pro Football Sports Network. And how this works, guys, as you know, I always allow my guests to have the first pick. And we don't do any trades at the start, even though we know trades are going to happen. But we go one by one. We pick a player. We discuss why we picked that player, any other ideas we can have. But, man, it's going to be exciting. And without further ado, the Titans are on the clock. And, Jeremy, where do you think the Titans go?
I have no question in my mind anymore after the pro day, after they pretty much sent down the entire organization. The Tennessee Titans are taking Cam Ward.
Oh, yeah. They built that whole little line. They already said Will Levis is going to be a work in progress. They brought in a veteran quarterback. Cam Ward's going to be there. It's obvious to all of us.
Yep. You take your shot. I would be bummed in the sense, and when I was at the Senior Bowl, I met Tennessee Titan people, and they're bummed. They knew they were either going to get a trade offer for a package that was incredible, and a lot of them would have been very happy with that. I think they were bummed because they know of all the years, they know Cam Ward is if you're going to go for it, that he's the right guy. Obviously, there's no debate there, but it's not like it's not like the Tennessee people were fooling themselves and saying, this is so great, Cam Ward, oh my God, you know, future franchise. They were bummed. They all were acknowledging that last year he would have been their QB 4 or 5. Like, they're not arguing that. And they're kind of just shrugging their shoulders and being like, it's like, even if that's true, he still has a chance. Like, he could be the guy. I think he clearly has the best chance of the quarterbacks in this draft to be the guy. So you take your shot when you have it. And, they know if they trade out of that pick, even if it's down to 3, they're not going to get him. So I think that's why they're going to hold the pick and just take him.
Yeah. And I get nervous about these quarterbacks because we know it's not the best quarterback class going into it. We've had a lot better ones. I'm in the minority. I think Jackson Dart's the best quarterback in this draft, and Cam Ward is second. But based on all the skill sets that Cam Ward has, he's got to be the pick there. And he could really revamp that offense. He's got a number one receiver already in Ridley. They need to give him some more weapons. But honestly, I think if he gets a little bit of a break, if he doesn't just jump right into it, I think by sitting a little bit, he can be really, really good going forward. That brings us up to the Cleveland Browns. And there's a lot of information going on with the Browns. They love Shedeur. They love Abdul Carter. They got all these needs, but I honestly think that they are going to go quarterback. They don't know what's going to happen with Watson. You got Kenny Pickett, the Super Bowl champion, but how much is he going to give you? Honestly, I think you got to go quarterback here, and I think Shedeur Sanders is the pick at number 2 with the Cleveland Browns.
I agree. I think re-signing Myles Garrett shows that they're not waving the white flag. They're not starting over again. The fact that they signed him to that monster contract, this team wants to maintain that defense. They still want to make this work. They have not given up on that. They do not have the quarterback. I mean, he's out. Even when he comes back, he hasn't been good. Watson, I think that ship has sailed. I think when they get back, I think that they're probably thinking we will have a cheap quarterback that's not going to cost as much, and they're gonna eat the money for Sanders. They're just gonna for Watson, they're just gonna have to eat it, and they're gonna start over with Sanders, and that's I think that's the pick they're gonna make. I wouldn't if I was the GM. Mm-hmm. I even if it meant tanking, even if it meant sucking, I don't care. But I don't think that's what if you look at Cleveland's history and their track record. They're not going to wait. They're just going to take Shedeur Sanders. And I will say he might hit. And the one thing about him, he's probably the most NFL ready of all the quarterbacks in the class. As far as his fundamentals, his game, he might be the most ready to step in there and be able to do it. I'm just really worried about about his processing and how slow it is. He holds the ball for a really long time. And if he could just fix that, I would have him as my number one quarterback if he could fix that. That's my number one issue with him is how long he holds the ball.
Do you think when he gets drafted there, do you think he sits behind Kenny Pickett or do you think he starts right away?
I think it's an open competition in camp. And I think that if he struggles the way I'm concerned about, like if he's just indecisive, he's holding the ball too long and they see that, they might say, we're not going to throw him out there. He's going to get, it'll lose all his confidence. We have to work on his getting him used to the speed of the NFL, and let's do that in a way that's not going to shake him. But Cleveland has not been known to make the right decisions. Even getting rid of Baker Mayfield too soon after he played hurt for them, and then his reward for playing injured was to to give up on him.
In Carolina,
and just ridiculous. They've made such bad decisions. It's hard to rely on them to make the right decisions. I think that Pickett leaves a lot to be desired, so I don't think Sanders would have to do much to win the starting job.
I think so too. And Kenny Pickett, the problem with him too, he's hurt a lot of the time, so he's not going to stay healthy for you. Yeah. He got hurt in his first game with the Eagles last year. He was injured and knocked out. So I think Sanders is going to be forced into it, and I think he's going to struggle his first year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Leading into the New York Giants at pick number 3, where do you go from here? You lost out on your quarterback that you were interested in, but you still have a couple of studs on the board. Where do you think they go?
I know that the popular pick here for a lot of people would be Travis Hunter, right? And a lot of people would be all over that and everything. But I don't think that's, again, knowing the history of the Giants, growing up in the New York, Jersey area, knowing their history, and also knowing their desperation. They need, I'm not saying a great cornerback who could come in and play some wide receiver is not an impact player, but nothing has an impact when you hit on edge. When you hit with an edge, that's the biggest impact. What makes Abdul Carter so special is not only is he a potential 15-sack guy, but he also is an incredible athlete, covers a lot of ground, so he helps you against the run. That's why he's special. That's why he's standing out in a great edge class, believe it or not. It actually is a very deep class. The reason he steps out, and there's such a wide gap between him and everyone else, there's a reason for it. He has the chance to be a very serious impact player, and I think that's where the Giants are going to go.
So Abdul Carter? Good pick. I'm one of them who say Travis Hunter just because they need another receiver. They could also use another cornerback if he's gonna play both ways, because they got Paulson Adebo over there, but they don't really have anybody else to play corner. And they got Neighbors as the number one receiver, but he can come in and be the number two. Problem is, you don't have anybody to throw to. You got Jameis, but you're going to get 50 interceptions with 50 touchdowns, which is interesting. But I think Abdul Carter, he's the safe pick. He's the best player in the draft. That is a solid pick. Leading us to the Patriots, and this is where Travis Hunter is going to go. They need a number one receiver over there to help Drake May. The kid is talented, runs smooth routes, has great hands. Don't know if he's going to be playing cornerback over there because they do have a solid defense in New England. He'll be predominantly the number one receiver, in my opinion, in New England.
And that would be a shock in the league. It's a shocking take. It's a hot take. I would even say it's hot. But it wouldn't be impossible. I definitely agree with the pick. There's no question about it. Because I know a lot of people think they're going to go offensive line, but in this class with these offensive linemen, it's not a smart pick. And New England has been smart. Overall, they have been smart. They understand players. They look at tape. They look at film. They don't listen to hype. He's clearly the best player. If he doesn't go to New York, which he can, I agree with you. He might go to the Giants. It's going to be Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. Like the Giants in New England are going to end up with those two players unless they trade out, which is never impossible, right? If somebody actually is willing to trade up. I don't see that in this draft really. Yeah. So, I agree with the pick. I don't know if they might try to let him play both ways. And maybe put him in, but maybe he'll play for defense. At least they'll put him in dime or nickel, certain packages, and he'll play a little defense. But if he went to New England, I can't argue. How do you not have him in there as receiver? If he's if he's a top two wide receiver on your team, talent wise, you have to play him, right? So
yeah, and you need him because I don't know any other receivers that they got over there that can be considered a number one on any other team.
Yeah,
they don't. Yeah. The weapons that they have for Drake May, they don't have great weapons for him. They built up the offensive line, which is great, but they put a lot of their resources into the defense. Mm-hmm. But offense, they need to fix it. Which leads us into our next pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Where do you think this team goes that has a lot of needs and a new head coach, offensive-minded? Where do you think these guys go?
I think he's going to want to build up his offensive line. I think he's going to want to protect Trevor Lawrence. I think he got BTJ, so he's got his receiver. There's tight end. He's too early for tight ends. So I think they're going to go offensive line. I don't think it's a good class for it. Like again, as a fan, I wouldn't be thrilled with it. So it's going to be either obviously Will Campbell or Membo. I personally would take Membo. I think they're going to take Will Campbell.
Okay. So Will Campbell is the pick for the Jaguars. Why do you think they would take Campbell over Membo?
Because because I look at their track record and they haven't been very smart.
Valid.
I think there are some teams, if you look at their draft history, when I study that, I go, who goes with the hype? Who goes with what everybody says and goes with the flow? And then what teams just listen to their personnel department, shut out the outside world, really go by their scouts? I think the people that really go by their scouts, the teams that don't care what the outside traffic is saying, are the people that are more in line with the things you'll hear Dom C say, right? Like the teams that listen to the scouts, the teams that look at the fundamentals, that look at the film. I know a lot of people say that's baloney. They all look at the film. I beg to differ. I think a lot of teams are very influenced by the media, very influenced by the hype, are afraid to make mistakes, and they go with what's expected. And I think the evidence is the great teams that build through the draft are the teams that usually do the things you don't expect them to do. Those are teams that make picks that don't seem as obvious. And I think Jacksonville is not one of those teams, so he's just going to jump on the Will Campbell train.
And they got a really young first-time GM, first-time head coach. Mm-hmm. I think they are going to focus on offense, and I think Will Campbell is a solid pick. They need offensive line help, and he could play tackle, and guard. So I think coming in, he could be solid.
You definitely want to be the difference between the Jets and them is that the Jets have their 2 guards.
Right.
So if you took Will Campbell and it turns out he's not one of the 9%, only 9% of the tackles in the NFL right now have arms as short as him, have arm length as short as he does. And his film also shows it, by the way. People think, I don't care, look at his film. Well, if you look at his film, guess what? It shows that he doesn't line up right. Like if he's playing tackle, he's not hitting the guy in his left shoulder pad. He's lining up center because he's afraid. He's afraid of the guy going outside. He doesn't trust his outside reach. So his film, it's all over his film. So the fallback with Jacksonville, though, is it's at least it's not a total loss. If he can't play tackle, he's the number 1 guard without question in this class.
Yeah.
And I know you don't want to take a guard at 5, but if you're taking him and hoping he could be part of the 9% that overcomes and is able to be a good tackle for you, then fine. And then it works out and you have yourself a tackle. But knowing that you have that fallback, that insurance policy, and being a team that could still use a great all-pro guard, Will Campbell, to me, the best part about picking him, if you're going to say what's the positive, is that he's an all-pro guard almost as a floor. Like I'm that confident in it. His run blocking is obscene. He pancakes people. He's great. It's very easy to see that he'd be dominant on the inside.
And I think that's a solid pick for them as well, because like they don't make the best decisions, but it's a safe pick, especially if you move him into guard, especially since they just lost Brandon Sheriff as well as a free agency. Mm-hmm. So yeah. I think that's a good move. And that leads us into the Raiders. And everybody's saying, oh, they're going Ashton Jeanty, running back. I don't think so. Under Pete Carroll, he loves his receivers, in my opinion. You look what he did in the Super Bowl where he had Russ throw the ball. And I think you got Myers as your number 1 receiver at this point. He's good, but he's not a number 1. I think they take the risk, and I think they take Ted McMillan on here, this pick right here. Wow. Because you want another big receiver. He complements Myers so well, complements Bowers as well. You also got Michael Mayer, who can do a double tight end set. And I think you can still get Nick Chubb as a cheap veteran option to be your running back, who I think could be solid for the Raiders. So I think they go Ted McMillan.
If you look at Pete Carroll and you look at his history of Seattle, who was his number 1 WR1? Who was his guy?
DK Metcalf.
Right. And what was his body type and what style of receiver was he? So when you look at Ted and you look at him as a big bodied receiver, can go up, make contested catches. Not obviously doesn't have the speed Metcalf has, but definitely has the athleticism, the going up and going to get him. I could see it as a sensible pick. I believe they could go Gentry also. They easily could take the running back. And I wouldn't be surprised by that either. But the fact that they lost Devontae Adams and they need a number 1 receiver, I can't argue with this pick. It's very, very reasonable that they would pick Ted here. And I was worried about it and believed that up until the combine when he kind of fell on the boards. I kind of thought that Ted wasn't going to be available to us and always was on the train of the Raiders are probably going to take him.
And I think it's the safest pick for them too, because Geno loves to throw the ball up and you need that contested catcher. And Ted McMillan is the best one in the draft with that. And you got to make sure you compliment your quarterback and give him the weapons he needs. Jeanty is great, but I'm still nervous taking a running back that high. Receiver is a much bigger need for them. And by getting Tet too, you open up everything for Bowers and Myers too to have bigger seasons, bigger games.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a very strong possibility of where the Raiders are going to go. No question about it.
Now with our beloved New York Jets, there's some big names still on the board. We got Mason Graham, Armand Membu, and Tyler Warren. Where do you think our New York Jets would be picked or would be going with?
So we're assuming that there's no trades, right?
Right.
Because I think that we both agree, we've talked about this, that we both agree the best scenario for the Jets would be to trade back.
Oh, yeah.
Because the difference between a player we take now and that's the type of player we can get at even 18 to 20 is just so like I would take the 18 to 20 guy along with an extra second round pick in like a heartbeat, right? And if we went all the way back to 18 or 19, it would probably be more than just a second round pick. It would probably be a second round pick and next year's second or something like that, which would be great for us because we could use some ammunition next year.
Oh, it'd be fantastic. And that's the biggest thing. We need that extra second.
Yeah, ammunition for next year, right? And that's the quarterback year. So if you have to take one of those guys, man, it's painful for all of them because the two positions that are of most need for us are so deep. Like I will not be upset if they take Tyler Warren. I wouldn't be upset, but it's such a deep position. We can get that in the later rounds. And the truth is, while the floor on Tyler Warren is the highest, there are guys that we can get in the third and fourth round that the ceiling is the same.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Where you can get a guy that could end up being the better tight end. You know, it's just that Tyler Warren is so much safer, right? And then you got a guy like Mason Graham again, not exactly the best the best complement to Q because he's so much like him.
I was thinking the same thing.
There's so many guys that are better complements, like the guy that plays next to Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, right? Which is just so much better of a fit when you look at the, you know, like because you need a bigger, thicker, more nose tackle-y type guy in the middle. So, or at least the guy that has the more of a range and has more athleticism to stop the run. So it's hard to take a tight end or, or a tackle. I think if I had to predict what the Jets are going to do, knowing that these guys, the Detroit, they got an OC and an offensive coordinator that comes from Detroit. You got the head coach who came from Detroit. When you look at how the Lions built, how they began their rebuild, it was to solidify the two tackle positions. So I think that they are going to buy into the hype a little bit. It's a little risky, but I think they're going to take Membu if they have to pick there.
And it's a solid pick. Build up that offensive line. You got a nice stud young offensive line across the board. I completely agree with you on Mason Graham. A little bit of a hot take. I don't think he was the best one on that defensive line. I think the only reason he was able to get through was because of Kenneth Grant taking up double teams all the time. I think Kenneth Grant was what helped make Mason Graham. And I think if I were to take either one of them, Grant would be the guy, and I honestly think he falls into the second round, and that would be the pick that I would go with. But
if he's there in the second round, that's very difficult to pass up. Except there are a couple of wide receivers that might still be on the board where I can make an argument, but it's going to be a very stressful second round pick. If you have a guy like Kenneth Grant and also a guy like Higgins, the wide receiver, you have those two guys on the board in the second round, that's going to be a very, very difficult decision for the Jets.
If this was where we went with Armand Membu, I'm going to be happy with anything. I've grown to like the Tyler Warren pick as a Penn State fan. I think he's awesome. Mm-hmm. But tight end at 7 is always too high for me, but I've been growing on it. Membu, he just came out of nowhere. He makes me nervous with how much he rose because of the combine. Because I wasn't really hearing much about him until the combine.
Yeah, it's scary. It's a scary pick. It's a scary, risky pick. So we're predicting what they're doing. We're not predicting what I would do. I would sell that pick for freaking 75 cents to the dollar.
Oh yeah,
I'd say it again. I would get ripped off just to trade back, just to get something. I'd call up Dallas and say, "Hey, how bad do you want Gentry? How bad do you want to secure that guy? And find out if they wanted him." I'd call Seattle. How bad do you want to come up and make sure you get the receiver that you really want, or whatever it is. I would fish for every team, and even if I had to sell it 75 cents to the dollar, get me back a little out of this pick because these are all good football players. They all might work out, and that'll be great. But this is just this is not a top heavy draft, and no matter who we pick at 7, it's not the right value compared to other years. You're going to feel cheated. And Membu is a guy who easily probably would have been more somewhere between 15 and 25 last year.
Yeah. And it's scary how fast these guys rise. Like, I'm completely on your side, team trade back. And I've been preaching that on X, on other YouTubers' channels. Trying to get back, adding that second, because let's say you trade back, get Colston Loveland, and then you could focus on getting Connerly as the offensive tackle, right tackle in the second round, and an Xavier Watts at safety, or a what's his name, defensive tackle Farmer in the second round. Those are guys you just built up 3 of your biggest needs with stud players.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I mean, you get an extra second round pick or even third round pick. You get a top 80 pick.
Mm-hmm.
You move back, and you get any of these guys, Loveland, Egbuka. I mean, it's like you're not gonna get shut out. I mean, you could take, everybody wanted Mason Graham, take Walter Nolan. I mean, you're not going to get shut out. You're not going to run out of guys. Some people love Golden. If you want to go wide receiver, you could take Golden if you don't like Egbuka. I mean, he has potential to be incredible. But that's the thing is there's just like when you look at Membo and you look at these other guys, Mason Graham, Tyler Warren, the difference between them and the guys I'm naming that you could get at 20, the gap isn't big enough. It's not as big as adding a top 80 pick. Adding a top 80 pick and a guy you can get at 20 is so much more valuable than anybody you're going to take at 7, in my opinion.
I completely agree with you. And that leads us into Carolina. And Carolina's a very interesting team. They can go in a bunch of different ways. I think they were one of the winners of free agency. They did so much for their team. But what do they need? They definitely need cornerback. They need a center. You can get a center later in the draft. Safety, you're not going Nick Emenwari that high. Edge or wide receiver. Now, I think the play that they're going to do here, they're going to go for an edge. And I want to look at all of the edges on the board still. We have all of them. Which one do I go with? Shamar Stewart's pretty good. Michael Williams. I honestly think they're going to shock people. I think they're going to go with Michael Williams. I think he just fits that defense a lot better for them. And I think he's going to be like that Brian Burns type of player that they missed last year after trading him to the Giants. The guy has such good bend on the edge, can get around quick, and just a monster. He's good in the run game as well. I think he's going to be a solid player and be that Brian Burns type of player for Carolina.
Yeah, I agree that that's what they'll do. I want to tell you, and you might know this about me, it's a little bit of a hot take. I don't know if I would have the guts as a GM to take him here because you're fired if you're wrong. But my guy after Abdul Carter, my number 2 edge, is actually Mike Green.
Yeah, he's been going up the board. My worry about him is he's had off the field issues. And
yeah, well, you gotta interview him and you gotta be convinced. But talent-wise, this guy is obscene. Anybody who's at the Senior Bowl, that's how you know somebody was at the Senior Bowl. When you have somebody walking and saying, when you have somebody that walks around thinking Mike Green could be a top 10 pick, or they're the number 2 edge on somebody's board, I guarantee you that person was at the Senior Bowl because we saw what we saw. Like what we saw was breathtaking. He was so dominant. Like he had a rep where we all looked at each other and said, I guess we're not going to get an interview with him tonight because we all knew he was going to be on a plane home, because that's what happens. The second a player thinks they proved what they need to prove, their agent is like, get the hell out of here. And he had a rep where everybody, all of us in the bleachers looked at each other and said, what did we just see? And somebody said, he's on a plane. And sure enough, when we went to the conference center where you get to do your interviews on Wednesday night, it was announced he's not here because he's on a plane on the way home. So I'm not saying that a team is going to take him this soon. I see him going in the 20s, but I do think he's going to slip into the first round. And I think he's going to go ahead of some of these guys and surprise a lot of people. But I just needed to share that if Mike Green was there in the second round for the Jets, I know it's not one of our needs, but if I think about the future of this team, it would be very hard for me not to root for them to take him.
And in all honesty, that's not a bad pick. Like you and Dom C, I've heard talk about him a lot more. And I've done a little research on him because I am a fan of the college he went to, Marshall. And just seeing his tape, he has explosive tape, like you said. The off the field issue scared me a little bit, but if he can be that type of talent, and if he's in the second round, Jermaine Johnson's coming off an injury. He's not going to be full go right away. So getting somebody with that insurance, I think, could be solid. And I completely agree with you on that.
And I don't think Jet fans should be so shocked if they end up taking an edge in the second round. I know a lot of, even the first round, I know a lot of people say, that's not what we need. We need all these things. How are we doing this? And I would have the same concerns. But it's all what their mind frame is. If they're thinking, yes, two things could be true. You could be trying to win every game passionately, but in your drafting and your building of the team, that might not mean, oh, we're going to take the best guy for 2025. They might be thinking, we're going to take the best guy for the next 5 years. And if there's somebody they believe could be the next Nick Bosa, or someone they could believe could be the next Myles Garrett, believe me, they're not going to, if that's what they believe, you don't not take the guy because that's not what you need in 25. These are franchise-changing players. So if you believe in any position that this is a franchise-changing player, you're taking that player. And it's not the wrong move unless you're wrong. You better be right. That's the question. That's the thing. You better be right.
And he's a risky play because if he's exactly what you say, and he's a beast and comes out and is like that Myles Garrett, the GM, he'll never go anywhere. He'll be there for the rest of his career if he can hit on a player like that. And the head coach as well, if they can hit on a player like that for a big need like edge, they'll be there for a lot longer unless they miss out on the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? A football team needs a great head coach, a quarterback, and you could almost be competitive every year if you have a quarterback, a coach, and a dominant franchise-changing, game-altering defensive player, right? Like if the Browns had a quarterback, or when they've gotten any kind of good quarterback play, they win. Why? Because they got Myles Garrett, a good quarterback, and their coach is actually pretty decent, believe it or not. So I think he's a decent.
I like Stefanski. Yeah, when his name came up as an opportunity, if they fired him, I was like, all right, give me Stefanski.
Yeah. Right now, I still believe he's a good coach. But in my life as a football fan, a team with a great edge, a team with a great quarterback, and a great coach is really close. You give me those pieces, that team is close.
Well, look, when the Jets were successful, when they had Chad Pennington as their quarterback, he was solid, but they had a John Abraham on the edge before they traded him away. And those teams were good under Herm Edwards, who I still considered to be a solid coach.
Yeah.
I completely agree with you on that you do need a quarterback, a solid coaching staff, and a guy who can get to the quarterback as an edge. But that leads us into the Saints, and they're an interesting one for me. Where do you think the Saints end up going?
Wow. They need a lot.
They do. Right?
I mean, they need a lot. I think Mason Graham cannot stay on the board this long. Like, I can't see Mason Graham staying on the board much longer. The Saints are a flashy type team. I could see Gentry is not impossible.
That's who I was thinking too.
Yeah, Gentry is not impossible. It's really hard to imagine Mason Graham surviving this long, but it's very hard not to think. They got an aging running back. I just don't know if it's such a dumb move to take a running back if you're the Saints right now. Rebuilding, it's such a dumb move because it's such a deep draft. It's like Gentry, you have to be you have to be so right. Like, he has to be elite because there's so many good running backs in this draft that he has to be extremely elite. He has to literally be a top 3 NFL running back, right?
Do you think he is that?
I think he could be. He also could just end up being a really good running back where there's running back. There might be a couple of running backs in this draft that end up having similar careers to him, and they're going to be picked in the 3rd and 4th round. So, so it's tough. It's tough. It's really, really difficult. Also, you can't rule out Will Johnson.
Yeah.
You're talking about a shutdown CB1.
Will Johnson, I think he ends up falling. That's a hot take. I think he ends up falling because there's a cornerback on here that I think a lot of teams are starting to look at, and that's Jedi Barron.
Yeah.
I honestly think a lot of teams he'll be the first cornerback off the board.
There are some great cornerbacks. There's like 6 really good cornerbacks. So.
My favorite one, Trey Amos. I think he's such a good man-to-man cover cornerback. He could be so good. He reminds me a lot of Sauce Gardner, just a little bit bigger.
Yeah. Let's say is this my pick?
Yep.
I'm going to predict that the Saints are going to make the smart pick, the solid pick, and take Mason Graham. I think they're going to take best player available and say, let's just get ourselves a top 5 tackle in the NFL.
49er fans are upset. They thought they were going to get him. That's a solid pick, though. They at that board, as if it fell like that and Mason Graham was still on the board, I think the Niners would be doing anything. I think they would try to trade up with us, with the Panthers, just to jump in front of the Saints to take them.
They might. Don't be surprised. That would be a beautiful trade for us. If the Niners want to hop the 3rd round pick, we'll swap back to 11 for their 3rd round pick. I'll do it.
That's the one I think is gonna be. I think they're gonna try to trade up. I think they're the biggest ones. Dolphins might try to trade up for some offensive line help too. I think they're eyeing Membu. They might try to trade up with the Raiders because if they want Ashton Genty, Genty's gonna fall.
Yeah.
And I think the Dolphins could try to trade up to 6 to jump in front of us.
Yeah.
For them.
Very possible.
But that leads us into the Chicago Bears, who have done so much this offseason, building up the interior of their offensive line. They got some needs on here. They got a lot of good players still left on the board. But they need more offensive line help, especially at the tackles. And looking at it, Banks is good, but I think if looking at the Bears, I honestly think they always take risk, no matter what. I think they're going to take Josh Simmons. I think he is going to be their pick there at tackle because of the upside that he could have if he is healthy. What's your thoughts on that pick? Do you think, would you agree, or do you think
I think that I never argue with the idea that a team might go offensive tackle. Do you know what I mean? If they believe he's the better player, I say that they're willing to take the risk. If they believe he's the better player, why not? You could never. I mean, it's never. If a team is smart, I mean, you have your quarterback. You have wide receivers. You can get running backs all freaking draft through the rounds of this draft. Right. What do you need to help this quarterback? You need offensive line. You need time. You're going to draft another running back in the 2nd or 3rd round. You're going to bring in one of these in this very deep class. What do you want? You want to have a good offensive line. That's where the Bears have struggled. That's why their offense has been terrible for years, because they've never really gotten the offensive line built. They've never had a real offensive line, a dominant offensive line. If you have that, Caleb Williams will be good. Like he might not be a superstar franchise top 3 elite quarterback. We're not saying he's Mahomes. We're not saying he's Lamar Jackson, but he certainly has the talent where if you give him time, with the receivers he has young, good receivers. You give him time. I think the kid showed enough that he's going to develop and be a good quarterback for you and play well.
And if you look at some of his game film this past year, when he had time in the pocket, he made some really good throws. The problem is he was getting lit up much more of the time than when he had a clean pocket. The kid, like you said, he can be really good if he gets that offensive line fixed. And that's what I think they're trying to do for him. Ben Johnson, I think, is a smart coach. And I think he's going to help fix that line. And I think he's going to take a guy who he can see having tons and tons of upside, who looked at by a lot as being, if healthy, being the best tackle in this draft.
Yeah.
And that leads us into your next pick, the San Francisco 49ers, who are, it looks like, rebuilding at this point. Where do you think they go?
This is going to surprise some people, maybe. I think, I mean, I think there's a very good chance that they're going to heavily consider Tyler Warren.
You think so?
I think they're heavily going to consider it. I think Kittle's getting older.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's starting to drop off a little bit. I'm not saying they're going to take him. I'm just saying don't be shocked if they do. I'm not saying that's the pick. I'm just saying I think that they're going to consider him a lot more than people might believe they're going to consider him. They really need wide receivers, so I think what they really want to do here is trade back.
Yeah.
I think that would be their ideal situation, is if they traded back. But I mean, man, it could be Will Johnson. Like it could be that they want their corner. It could be Shamar Stewart. The Niners they're very big on pressure, very big on defensive line, keeping the pressure up. I don't know their new defensive coordinator very well. I mean, who is that guy? I don't know what he is. I don't know what that bald guy likes to do. No, I'm gonna have to say they're gonna go Shamar Stewart. I'm gonna say that he's gonna be all about the defensive line and pressure and edge, and he's gonna want more pressure.
And that seems like the type of player Saleh would like.
Yeah.
And just getting that pressure, even though we didn't blitz very often, which I was shocked about because we had tons of players. Like Quincy Williams, I think is going to light it up this year by being in a more aggressive defense.
Yeah, I just think that Saleh, he said it all the time. He wants to get there with 4. He just wants to he wants the pressure and do it all with 4. So he can put everybody back and be safe and no big plays, keep his safeties out of the box and back and, play in center field. His whole thing was don't give up the big play, zone out, wide zone. They could have the inside, they could have the short stuff, and then we'll tighten up as it goes on and get there with 4. And Shamar Stewart will help you get there with 4 potentially.
Oh, yeah,
he's an explosive player. If his game translates to the NFL, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Completely agree. And that leads us to the Cowboys. And if this is how the board fell, I know they just signed 2 running backs, but Jerry Jones likes to make splashy picks. Ashton Genty's the guy here.
Who did they sign at running back?
They got Williams from the Broncos, and they got Sanders.
Yeah,
Miles Sanders.
Yeah, they're taking Genty. If he's there, they're taking him. Yeah, they're taking him. That's their Emmitt Smith, Ezekiel Elliott. Jerry Jones likes to have his marquee franchise type running backs. He's old school. He's not the new trendy NFL. He's the, and it's not like it's been a problem for them, and it would make Prescott's life a lot easier. You get a guy like Genty. He's a guy who can force defenses to put an extra guy in the box. That's going to open it up for Dak. It makes CeeDee Lamb more dangerous. It's not a bad pick.
The problem is with Dallas is their offensive line is not great. They lost a lot of players on that offensive line, and they're getting older. They need help on there. So going for a guard like Tyler Booker could have been solid. Banks could have been solid. I think protecting Dak would be much better because when he gets pressure on him, he is not good. He is rough.
They just went tackle first round last year with Guyton.
Right. Did they?
So
they had him at right tackle. Yeah.
So I think that you have to, at some point, like we say it about the Jets all the time, at some point, yes, you have to be able to trust second and third round for offensive line also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do we trust their owner, though, to do that?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that he might be they might be going into the draft where they're going to use 2 picks in the second, third, or the second and fourth round on offensive line. And that's just as committed to building your offensive line and repairing your offensive line as drafting one here. Right. There's plenty of guards. Second round, you're going to get a tackle or a guard. Where they're picking, someone's going to be there. There's going to be a tackle there that, it might be Connerly. It might be Easterly. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Ursary. Yeah. I mean, there are guys that might be there for them. And I think that they're going to, I think it makes sense. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if they took a tackle here. Like if they, I wouldn't be shocked, but I just get a feeling he's going to go for the flash. He's going to go for that. He wants that star running back. He wants that star on the helmet. You know, he wants that elite player. He wants that 1,500 yards a season running back.
If Ashton Genty is gone here, my thought is he would still go running back. O'Myron Hampton, I think he'd still go with that flashy player.
Yeah, it would
or Tyler Warren. I could see here too. Tight end help.
Definitely not impossible. He could definitely take Tyler Warren, and that's going to be interesting what Miami does with who's on the board. You know, that's going to be interesting. When you think about what Miami will do next, because they're probably going to be pretty excited at this point.
Oh yeah, they got a lot of players on the board that they're probably shocked at this point who have fallen. But it's your pick. Who do you think our enemy, the Miami Dolphins, go for?
Didn't they just lose a corner?
They did.
Yeah, and
well, they lost the safety. They lost the safety, Holland.
Right, but what about the other? They had that guy, the big name corner, who I don't think ever played that great. The guy they got from the Rams,
Ramsey.
Yeah, is he still there?
I think so.
Okay, I know they like cornerbacks. They really like corners, but they also need a lot of help on their offensive line. This is where even guards could come into play.
Right. Defensive line too. They did lose Emmanuel Ogbah as well.
Yeah. They need a lot. I think though, I think that you have to protect Tua. So I'm going to say this is where Kelvin Banks goes.
And that's a solid move. You know, you got to protect Tua, like you said. And now, if Tua goes down, you got to protect Zach Wilson.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
I don't even want to jinx it or put it out in the world that we play against Zach Wilson. I don't even my stomach can't even handle that.
Do you remember how scared people got when Mike White went there?
I know.
The fear that came over our fan base because Mike White was there, and they're like, "Oh no, he's gonna torch us when Tua gets hurt." I'm like, dude, come on now. But the board fell like this. The Colts are gonna run to the podium and take Tyler Warren. That's their biggest target in this draft. I think they're running to the podium for him.
Easiest pick in the draft. I mean, there's a chance they might try to trade up with with us to make sure they get him. So
they'd have to give us a haul because Tyler Warren is one of our top prospects. They'd have to give us something big to be able to.
Trade back this far. If they gave us their second this year and their second next year, you're not trading back to 14.
If that was the trade, I would definitely, because then you can get. I love this kid, tight end Fanon from Bowling Green. I think he's solid, but we just signed a guy like that in Stone Smart, who's more of a receiver than a blocker. And there are other tight ends later in the draft that I think you could get. Gunnar Helm, I think in the second round could be solid.
Gunnar Helm, Ferguson, Mason Taylor.
Yep.
I mean, there's good guys. There's good guys. Mason Taylor concerns me a little bit more when people say blocking. I'm like, did they watch all the film? Because I watched Mason Taylor play against. I watched him in the Ole Miss game, against Ole Miss.
Yeah.
I noticed it when me and Dom C were watching Will Campbell, and we couldn't help but notice Mason Taylor missing a couple of key blocks and blowing up the play. We were like, "Oh, is he really that good?" But it wasn't so much that he wasn't. First of all, it was only a few plays. It's one game. And also it wasn't about his inline blocking. It was in space where he was missing. Mm-hmm. But it was a concern to see him missing some like in space blocking where you need a tight end to come around and block. But I don't know. I mean, I think it's a very rich draft with tight end. I'm not worried about it. If we take Tyler Warren, fine. If we don't, I'm not worried about it. It's a very rich draft for tight end.
Right. And they're all, like you said it earlier, all of the big needs that the Jets have, they're very deep in this class, which is great. You could wait on defensive tackle and get a great player like Jamari Caldwell in the fourth. Right. And he could come in and start right next to Quinnen. So all of our needs I'm not worried about. The only one that I'm worried about is safety. That's the need that I'm worried about because I don't think the class is that deep after the second round.
But the fact that we already got our free safety changes it, because strong safety, there are guys.
Right.
There are safeties in this draft that will be there in the third round, fourth round, possibly the fourth round even, that will be fine for strong safety. In the box safeties, there are some that have a chance to be there in the fourth round, and that's my hope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's completely right. And that leads us to the Falcons, which they have some decent needs as well. Cornerback, defensive tackle, edge. All of their needs are the defensive side. So where do you think the Falcons are going to go here?
They're going to take Will Johnson.
Yep.
And I know there's other guys that could jump in front of them and everything like that. And it's not, it's not ridiculous that would happen at all by any means. But but even though that's a possibility, it's not what I'm going to predict. Will Johnson, I think, is probably the census, CB1 off this board this year, and he has the potential to be that complete. He could be a top 3. Like, his ceiling is, if he stays healthy, he could very easily be top 4, top 3. Maybe not his first year. I could see him in the top 12 rookie year, and then developing into a top 4 cornerback in the NFL, specifically cover corner, like man, corner. He just has elite skill sets. Like, he's just glue. He's very sticky. He's very athletic. He's got good hands. He's also a guy who can make plays.
And he's good, like you said, in man, zone. He can do it all. There's not a lot of weaknesses with him. And the Falcons have hit on defensive backs. So that's a solid pick for them. I agree with that one. That's a good one. Leading us to the Cardinals. And now they need help on defense. They need another receiver. They need guard help. They need linebacker help. I honestly think they get another running mate with Marvin Harrison. And I think they end up going with Matt Golden at this play. Get somebody to help Kyler Murray out. Get somebody you can throw the ball to. Guys, solid, great hands, great route runner, decent speed. I think they go receiver there.
I think it's a great pick. I think, you got Marvin Harrison, who's looking like a tall possession receiver, great third down receiver. He could do the big plays and everything, but I see him as that big target. He could throw a great range and everything. Why not complement that with speed and explosiveness? Really make it really a dangerous team. Like what Kyle Murray, what a great weapon that would be for him.
They have a solid tight end too.
Right. Well. Oh, yeah, McBride. So now you look at it and you got 3 progressions there, right? You got 2 progressions where you can, you look for Marvin, there's your guy. You got Golden going deep, working the deep part of the field, speed. If it's not there, if the defense could take that away from you, you got McBride as your check down. I mean, it's looking good. It's an attractive set, 2 wide receivers and tight ends. It's just a solid pick. It makes them dangerous. It actually gives them that Cincinnati Bengal effect, with what they've always had with those 2 scary receivers. It brings Arizona to that level. It's very scary. Very scary. And Kyle Murray has the, explosiveness in his arm that he does those kind of things. Like, he loves to scramble and then throw deep down the field. And you could see Golden just doing a post, right? And just wide open, and Murray just throwing down.
He's a matchup nightmare.
Yeah.
It would open so much up. And I think they can make them contenders in that division against the Rams.
Oh yeah, they're ready to make the step. They had some moments last year. They look like they're right on that cusp, Arizona, of being a very serious football team.
It's awesome. And then leading into the Bengals, who another team that so much offensive ability, defense was what let them down last year. Where do you think the Cincinnati Bengals go?
I think you're looking at a guy like Jalen Walker from Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
I think would be a solid pick for them. I think they just need, they need a linebacker who could do it all, a guy who can blitz, a guy who's going to stop the run, sideline to sideline, just a dominant defensive player that just does it all, that eventually becomes the leader of that defense. And I think he's the best guy on the board to become that.
Yeah, I agree. Could be that edge rusher too. He can come burning off the edge. He's a solid blitzer.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. I think that's a great pick. He, like you said, leader leader on that defense. Bringing us up to the Seattle Seahawks. They could use receiver help, cornerback help, but the biggest thing, you got Sam Darnold as your quarterback now. You got to keep him upright. You need to keep him upright in the interior of the offensive line. Tyler Booker is the play here. Tyler Booker going to Seattle.
Yeah, I think that as tempting as it would be to take a wide receiver, I think that if they did that, the mistake would be you have to know who your quarterback is.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Darnold needs space. He needs a clean pocket. That's like people have to understand when you looked at it, watch him in Minnesota, what finally got him to break out? Minnesota gave him obviously the best receiver and an amazing offensive coordinator, but he was clean. He was kept clean. You know, he didn't see the ghosts. And then in those last couple of games, what went wrong? Why did he play terrible in those last games? What wasn't there? He didn't get the same protection. He was pressured. You know, like you know, Sam Darnold is a dangerous, very extremely talented quarterback. He's got an arm. He could throw the entire route tree. He could throw the ball anywhere on the field. But man, if he's under pressure, he just falls apart.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great pick. I think you have to protect him.
You have to. And yeah, Seattle needs that offensive line help. They really do. They have two good receivers now. Both are considered slot receivers. So, but there's opportunity in the later part of the draft to take your bigger receiver. Yeah. Like there's so much depth there. And that leads us to Tampa Bay. Where do you think the Bucs go?
Oh, wow. I think this is where you might see a safety come off the board.
Do you think it's Starks, or do you consider Emenwari to be a better fit for him?
I think Emenwari is the better safety. I don't know how the Bucs are going to see it, though. Right? I have no idea how the Bucs are going to see it. Man, I think they like white, like based on their past, they like physical guys. They like downhill tackler, kind of guy, box kind of guy. I think they'll go with the kid from Georgia. Yeah, they. I don't think they would be the team that would surprise. I think they'll just take Starks.
Okay, safe pick with Starks. I agree. The physicality is the thing. If you wanted a physical safety, Nick Emenwari is what's the safety from Seattle years ago? 2.0. He's a big thumper. I forget what his name is, but he was part of the Legion of Boom. Cam Chancellor, that's who it was. He's Cam Chancellor 2.0, in my opinion. Right. Great tackler, solid down, helps out in the run support, solid coverage. But Malachi Starks is the safe pick. I think I love that pick a lot for you, for the for the Bucs.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great pick for them. Leading us into the Broncos.
It makes sense knowing the coach too. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. It really does. But I think at this part in the draft, what the Broncos are going to do, and I think it's going to upset Charger fans, these guys are going to go Colston Loveland.
I was going to say the same thing. I was going to say the same thing. Same thing. Great pick for them.
Because if you know anything about Sean Payton, he loves his tight ends, his athletic tight ends. Jimmy Graham, years and years ago, was a monster in that offense. Colston Loveland reminds me a lot of him, just a better blocker. And I think with that weaponry that they have in Denver, giving Bo Nix a safety net as a tight end like Loveland, the sky's the limit for the kid.
I think when you watch Bo Nix's game, because even last year, when you watch his game, he's mostly a short part of the field player. And that's because he had some downfield passes and some plays, but overall, most of the game, they were quick dump offs. They were check downs. Getting him a weapon like Loveland would be priceless for him. Having that check down, being able to, when he's under pressure, if the play's not there, being able to, for Loveland to be able to squirt out after a block and just turn around. And that's where Bo Nix is at his best, that little short passing game. Dumping it off, and that would be his best friends. Bo Nix and Loveland will be roommates.
Oh yeah,
You know
it
what I
would
mean?
be a match made in heaven for them. Leading us into an interesting pick with Pittsburgh. Now, we have the rumors of Aaron Rodgers going there. He's taking his sweet time. But where do you think Pittsburgh goes? Do you think they end up with a quarterback? Do you think they go somewhere else? What do you think they do?
I think this is where you start. This is where the Jackson Dart conversation begins.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was thinking too.
Right. This is where it begins. Now, here's the thing. They would be much better off if they took Jackson Dart to get Aaron Rodgers. Because Jackson Dart, more than any quarterback that I'll say that I'm kind of like on the fence with the first thing I say about him is he should not play game one in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
This kid should not be rushed. I say that because he plays for a make-believe offense in Ole Miss, where it's not his fault. Like, it's not fair to criticize a player because he happens to play in a college offense that is not realistic. It's nothing. It doesn't resemble. Plenty of other quarterbacks in college are also in a similar situation. Ole Miss is like up there with Tennessee. It's like really uniquely. They find a guy who fits that system and it works really well, but that system is not an NFL system. That doesn't mean that Jackson Dart doesn't have the talent to then learn how to play in an NFL pro system, right? And be a great quarterback. I just don't think that like he gets drafted, he comes to camp, and in a few months, he's ready to be in the NFL. Running an offense in the NFL. One thing that helps the Steelers is they're a run first team, defense, run, power run, minded type team anyway. So I think that would benefit him because there's not as much pressure on his shoulders. But if you get a guy like Aaron Rodgers, it allows Jackson Dart to learn, to be developed. But he's definitely in the conversation here for the Steelers. I'll leave it at that. He's definitely in the conversation. It's just a matter of in their minds, do they want to get Aaron Rodgers so they can pick next year? Or are they going to want to go for Dart right now?
I honestly think if they do end up with Rodgers, I still think they consider taking Dart because if Aaron Rodgers retires next year, after a year of learning behind him, I think Dart could be ready to go, especially if they mold an offense around his skill set. He reminds me of like Baker Mayfield type. He's got that grittiness. He's not afraid to run somebody over. Got a good arm, but he needs, like you said, he needs that year to sit. I think in that type of offense, I think even with Rodgers going there, taking Dart there would be a solid pick for them.
Yeah, and also realistically, you think Aaron Rodgers is going to play 34 games the next 2 years?
No, behind that offensive line, right. Absolutely not.
Even if he comes back for 2 years, is he playing 34 games? Right. So they could take Dart. He could sit behind Rodgers for a year, and then the year after that, they might bench Rodgers and say Dart's going to have his time now, and now you're just a backup quarterback because the Steelers are not that kind of organization that they're going to get. Rodgers is not going to be in charge. He's not going to be. This head coach doesn't play games. Like if he says Dart's ready, you're the veteran backup. That's what Rodgers is. He could retire and he could quit. But the Steelers are not going to hesitate to pull that trigger. So
right. Look what they did to Fields last year. He was 4-2, and they're like, all right, Russell Wilson's the guy, and they threw him in.
Yeah, I think there's a chance. You know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to say the Steelers are going to take Jackson Dart here.
I think that's a solid pick. Jackson Dart to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think that's a perfect fit for him. But now, what do we do with the Chargers? They're pissed off that their rivals, the Broncos, stole Colston Loveland. They were looking at him. They need receiver help, cornerback help, center help.
A lot of corners on the board.
There are a lot of corners still on the board.
This is a defensive-minded coach.
Honestly, the biggest thing that they need somebody big on that defensive line. Derek Harmon,
yeah,
I think is going there. Give some bulk on that defensive line.
Yeah, we're gonna have to save this. I think it'd be interesting on how accurate this draft is.
I think so too. I think it could fall this way, honestly, because we got some good reasonings behind it, some shockers, but I think so far it's looking pretty good.
Yeah.
Green Bay, Packers, where do you think they go? They had a solid defense last year. Offense could use some more weapons, but they're
I
not a
think
team that I see needs a lot.
they definitely don't need a lot. I still think, do they really have their WR1?
No, unless Watson breaks out. But
Yeah. I think they're gonna. It's tough because like we still got some really good cornerbacks too. Like, and Jihad Campbell still being on the board is kind of crazy.
mm-hmm.
It's really hard to imagine. Yeah, I mean and then you got the safety. You got Nick still. Amor still there. I'm gonna say Green Bay's gonna go for the linebacker. They're gonna take Jihad Campbell.
Good pick. That is a solid pick.
Yeah.
Physical downhill tackler. God, he big guy. Great pick for them. Bulks up that defense, which was already a strength for them.
He could be a top 15 pick, and
he honestly could,
and it wouldn't be ridiculous.
He really could. I could see Pittsburgh going for him. I could see the Bucks taking him.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of teams that need linebacker help. And honestly, I think he's the best linebacker in the draft.
Yeah.
He could be solid. That leads us into Minnesota. They could go a lot of different ways, but the defense was a strength last year. They bulked up that defensive line in the offseason. Now they need another safety because they lost Cam Bynum. Give me Nick Emenwari. Going in, physical thumper, comes downhill, makes an aggressive defense even more aggressive.
They need help in that secondary. So
mm-hmm.
And I think that's what he's going to – yeah, they need help in that secondary. Whether it's cornerback or whether it's safety, they need help. And, wow, the corners are really slipping. This could be interesting. The Jets would have a tough decision if that trend kept happening, if the corners kept slipping, because there's certain things like you just take the best play. You can't pass up certain things, although the Jets signed a multi-year deal with Stevens, so it's very difficult.
He could play safety. They could make the switch for Stevens to play safety and then draft a cornerback too.
It's possible.
Which could – I think Stevens would be better at safety.
Yeah, but he'd be the same as Cisco. He's more of a free safety, right?
True.
So that's the tough part.
Yeah.
So,
Texans.
Now Texans have an amazing cornerback. Do they?
Yeah.
Do they try to complement it and go with two dominating corners because they're so good there? But like also they don't. Do they need an edge because we got some edges up there that are slipping.
Edges are slipping. Think about receiver too. All they have is Nico Collins now.
Yeah. Oh wow, and there's some great receivers there.
Yeah.
And you do want to help your young quarterback. So you do want to help
play here because there's so many players that they could use right away. It's like, where do you go with that?
Yeah, because they had early success with this coach, but the reality is they have holes. Mm-hmm. They have areas where they need to improve to really be competitive. Man.
Is there a position you'd like to look at?
I mean, oh man, it's really. I'm just trying to decide if they need a receiver or an edge. To me, it's between that. Didn't they sign someone at wide receiver? They did bring in someone to help.
They lost Diggs. Tank Dell's out for next year. I don't remember who they brought in.
You know what? I'm gonna say that you got to help your young quarterback. They're gonna bring in Emeka Egbuka.
Damn, that's the guy. That's who I keep mocking to them, and it makes me sad because I really want him as a Jet.
Yeah,
I really do.
We just have to trade back to get him.
Exactly. But best receiver in the draft, in my opinion. Best route runner, great hands, smooth transitions, can play in the slot, can play outside. He reminds me, and you're probably gonna laugh. He reminds me of Stephon Diggs with a better attitude.
Yeah.
That's who he reminds me a lot of.
Yeah. That's not a bad comparison.
Now, getting into this with the Rams, they could be a shocker with a quarterback too, because they Stafford's not long to keep playing, and I don't think Milrow would fit that offense. I think they'd go with a Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, but they're not doing it in the first round.
Absolutely not. That would be way too high. But we've seen crazy things happen. What these guys need, I think, what they're going to end up doing, they're going to take cornerback Jedi Barron. They need defensive back help a lot. They could also go with edge, but I think cornerback help would be the biggest need for them right here.
Yeah. No, I think that the corners slip too much. Like somebody's gonna like these guys are too good to be this, to keep lasting. So it makes total sense. And it's interesting because I think that it's going to go back to back corner here. I think
Revel.
Yeah, I think the Ravens are going to take Revel, and I think it's a steal.
They lost Stevens. Now they replace him with a really good one.
Yeah.
Which, if this were to fall like this, the Lions would be salivating. James Pierce is the obvious choice for them right here.
Oh my God, they're so happy right now, and they're becoming so dangerous. I mean, Hutchinson will be back, and my God, the edge power coming off these guys.
The speed is insane that they're going to have.
Yeah.
Which leads us to the Commanders.
They're another one that might go edge or
they could definitely
or offensive line. Even defensive tackle.
Yeah, there's a lot of Well, hold on, they just got the all-star Javon Kinlaw, so that monster contract that they gave him.
You know what? After doing that, they're not drafting a tackle because how much you're not going to put the resource in,
exactly.
They might go edge though.
Mm-hmm. Scorton's still on the board.
Yeah, I think if Nick Scorton's there, I think they're going to take him. Yeah, I think they're going to go edge.
Good pick. That leads us to the Bills. Where do they go? Ooh. There's so many good options that they could go with. Luther Burden III is somebody I could see going to them.
Easily
them. Tyleik Williams. They need some bulk on that defensive line. Oh, man. Chiefs are going to be mad about this one because they need a wide receiver help too. But Luther Burden's going to the Bills. Give them more speed and resources there. Even though they just signed Palmer is a good rotational receiver. I think Burden comes in and right with Coleman there too. They got some weapons for Josh Allen now. He's going to be sitting pretty back there. Now
the Chiefs need to invest in their offensive line.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I think Zabel might be the move here.
All right.
I think that Zabel might be the guy. Yeah, I think that's a solid guy. He's versatile. He can move out the tackle if he has to in an emergency. Yeah.
So many great players still on the board.
Oh, the Eagles are watering. I can't believe that the tackles that are on the board are just out of control. But the Eagles are so stacked on their defensive line.
They are.
They're so stacked.
Oh, man.
They might try to replace Huff. What Huff was supposed to be.
Yeah, I was looking at Azuriku or whatever his last name is from Boston College. I was looking at him. I know who I'm going with.
They're smart. They're
Mike
smart.
Green.
They're going to take Mike Green because they're freaking smart.
Damn.
Yeah.
I am downloading that one because this draft, I really liked it. Oh, yeah.
It's funny that we see Baltimore.
That, my friends, is the first round mock draft with Jets Chaos. Jeremy, what do you guys think? How do you think that went, Jeremy?
I'll tell you, it was harder than I thought.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, the way that goes, it's making me realize the second round is such a sweet spot because someone's falling to us.
The defensive tackles. Look at all Tyleik Williams, Grant, all of these guys falling. Their teams are going to be so happy with all. If it plays out just like that, teams are going to be so happy with how that.
Oh my God, there's going to be I mean, we're going to have such a tough decision to make because there's like I think our two favorite cornerbacks are still going to possibly be there for us if it broke down, Thomas and Amos. So you're going to have two cornerbacks the Jets are going to have to like look at and go, oh my God. Right. And then the way we just did it, I think the 3 wide receivers were gone. Well, Abuka was gone. Tet was gone.
Tet was gone. Abuka was gone. Burden was gone. Golden too.
Golden. Okay.
Golden was gone too. Yeah, he went to the Cardinals.
So the only guy left receiver for us to consider at that point would be, I think, Higgins
or Trey Harris.
Or Royals.
Or Royals, yeah.
I like Royals better than Trey Harris.
Personally. Trey Harris is interesting to me because, like you said, he was Jackson Dart's #1 receiver, but played in an offense that wasn't like pro style. Right. He needs to work on his tree, his route tree.
That's always concerning.
Well, yeah, look what happened to Mims. He couldn't figure out all the plays or the positions, so the Jets got rid of him.
See, but what I love about Higgins is he's such a perfect complement to Garrett Wilson. Like, what a juicy compliment, like to get Higgins, a 6'3", 6'4" type. It's crazy catch range, just red zone guy. He's such a good red zone guy, man. Like, it's like you're in the 18-yard line, 15-yard line. You want to throw it to the corner. There's a guy who can go up and get it.
Let's get crazy a little bit. Jets get Higgins in the second round. Noel later in the draft. Get a slot guy too. Get both of them.
If Noel was to slip, I mean, it depends on how they feel about Corley.
Corley, I don't know, man. This is a different regime. We have no idea, but they were trying to get some slot guys. They brought in some receivers for the slot position. So I don't know if they're that high on Corley.
Yeah, we have to. We'll find out.
They almost brought in Rondale Moore.
Yeah, it's because he's an unknown. He's just such an unknown entity. All you know about him is the coaching staff hated him.
Mm-hmm.
And we traded up to get him, and then refused to use him.
It's mind-boggling, man. I had no idea what our coaching staff was doing last year.
I mean, but to give, there's a lot of times that we attack and criticize the coaching staff. So they don't know how to use guys. Why are they not making the wrong decisions? But the thing is, they ended up being right from the sense of like Denzel Mims. We went nuts. Free Mims. Then Mims went to Detroit, got hurt, came back. He's coming back. Now he's playing in the freaking AFL or whatever they call it. Right? So, I mean, so they were right about him. Elijah Moore, right? Like people are going to say like Elijah Moore is a 400 or 500 yard receiver. He's a WR3, WR4 depth receiver. Like, so they weren't wrong about these guys.
If you look on X2, the amount of Jet fans that are saying for Elijah Moore to come back, I'm like, whoa. Like, he's free agency. Why would he want to come back? And why would we want him?
Do they remember that we were 6-3 or 6-2, whatever it was, and he walked off the team for a week? He had to go home for a week because even after winning 3 games in a row, something we have so little joy. We're all happy. We have something to be happy about. And then this guy, after winning 3 games in a row, demands a trade. You want that guy back? Like, I don't understand that.
Can never have nice things. We start winning and then that.
To me, he broke the biggest rule there is to break. You're winning. If you're losing and you complain, like I have no targets and we're losing and I want to help the team, we've won 3 games in a row. Do what you're doing. You're a decoy, whatever it is. But what he was thinking about is I'm not putting up numbers. He was worried about him. He wasn't worried about the team. He was worried about him. That is not an Aaron Glenn player. We are not bringing in Elijah.
Oh, absolutely not.
No.
And I love some of the moves that Glenn and Muji have made. I really think Stone Smart is a solid signing. I think he can be really good. And Tyler Johnson too. I love that signing too. More depth. And the defensive tackle we got from Kansas City is really good too. Nadi as a rotational defensive line piece. I really like that.
I think we're recognizing that we're not at the point where we're ready to bring in big guns free agency. We're at very least we're retooling.
Mm-hmm.
We're figuring out who our starting quarterback is for the future. We use this offseason to build the back end of the roster. which is just as important as the front end of the roster.
Right.
We have some young stars. We have guys that we're going to invest in. We built the back end. We're building the depth. We're building the full. You have to have a full 53. We are getting out the old and we're getting in new blood. Lots of guys with potential to be better than we think, but at the very least, our depth players filling out the roster. Obviously, the draft, we're going to be targeting top-end players.
Right.
And then next year's draft, top-end players, maybe if there's room in their cap, maybe we're going to make a move and try to get another top-end player via free agency. Wouldn't be surprised if we didn't, though. Wouldn't be surprised if you don't see us bringing in big marquee names until in free agency until 27. Like, it might take till 2027 before you see us bring in a $25 million to $30 million free agent, because I think that the big contracts are going to go to GW, Sauce, maybe JJ, like this is where you're going to see the contracts going.
And then you're looking at JJ. If he does get that big contract, then you got to look at Will McDonald down the road too. If he's balling out, if you want to bring him back, it's tough because you're going to have to let some of these big name guys go. Quincy Williams' contract is coming up, so you let him walk so you can save a little money. Quinnen Williams too. Later down the road, he's getting older, but he's still here for a while. But these are contracts you got to look at. Like, hell, we had to get rid of C.J. Mosley, which was a real disappointment, but it was a move that needed to be made.
Right. If it was next year and Quinnen Q was a year older, right, depending on how he plays, a guy like Mason Graham might make more sense. Like as we go down, I don't know how Quinnen's going to age. We don't know how he's going to age. He might be a guy that he might go decline 29 years old. He might start to really
be one of those guys. Oh, I don't want to think
one
about
of these
that.
Guys. We don't know. We don't know. He struggled a little bit with his weight. He's and it's if he loses a step because of age, if he loses a step, it could change everything. You just don't know.
And that's the NFL, man. Anything could happen. They always say any given Sunday, anything could happen, no matter what. But again, guys, this was fun. I really enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed yourself on the Jets Ward. Welcome.
I had a great time. I like the ward. No straight jackets. So, I don't.
Right. It's always fun here. And tell us, Jeremy, where can we find you?
One of the things, if you happen to see this, if you don't know, me and my brothers have a channel called Brooklyn Brothers Food Review. So I always like to push that. If we're all over the country, so we're reviewing restaurants all over the place. There's a whole playlist for New York, if you're in the tri-state area, but everywhere, including Greece. My brother was in Europe reviewing restaurants, in England reviewing restaurants. I do a lot in California. So it's a fun channel if you're into food. If you're a foodie and you like to watch fun food reviews, I recommend that. Also, our older videos have us torturing ourselves with hot sauce, so that's fun to watch. And then Jets Chaos, and then of course on Talking Jets, every Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern, I join Matt O'Leary and we do a show called Reality Check. That's probably the work I'm very proud of. And also, by the way, on Sunday nights, I'm with Dom C breaking down position by position for the draft. So if you want to learn more about the players and ranking each position, Dom C is the best. And he joins me every week and he breaks down position by position. We're probably doing safety next week.
Oh, that's a good part. That's a good one. Safety draft is big this year. I like it. But there you have it, guys. Jeremy, thank you so much again for joining me. This was a blast. And guys, if you enjoyed the mock draft, let us know how we did down in the comment section. I will be putting all the descriptions for Jeremy's channels down in the description to let you guys know where to find him at as well. And again, guys, thank you so much for joining us in the Jets Ward. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. See you guys later. That was so